Picture this. A crowded mess hall on a U.S. military base. A young female officer, let's call her Lieutenant Miller, is getting her lunch. Suddenly, a burly Marine, clearly in a rush, shoves past her, nearly knocking her tray to the ground. "Hey, watch it," he grunts, not even bothering to look back. Lieutenant Miller, though startled, just sighs and continues on her way. This kind of casual disrespect wasn't new, but it was always frustrating. She found a seat, trying to brush off the incident and just enjoy her meal in peace. But the universe, it seems, had other plans for that day. Just as she took her first bite, the doors to the mess hall swung open with authority. The low hum of conversation and clatter of cutlery instantly died down. Every single person in that room, from the newest private to the most seasoned NCO, snapped to attention. Standing in the doorway were not one, not two, but four generals. Their chests were adorned with rows of ribbons, and their shoulders bore the unmistakable glint of stars. The air crackled with a level of respect and tension you could cut with a knife. The same Marine who had just shoved Lieutenant Miller stood ramrod straight, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. The generals scanned the room, their gazes sweeping over the sea of uniformed personnel. Then, something incredible happened. They walked past rows of saluting soldiers, their eyes fixed on one person. They bypassed colonels and majors, heading straight for the small table where Lieutenant Miller was sitting, her lunch half-eaten. The entire mess hall watched in stunned silence. The four generals stopped directly in front of her table, and then, in perfect unison, they raised their hands to their brows and delivered a crisp, sharp salute, not to a superior officer, not to a visiting dignitary, but to her. The Marine who had pushed her looked like he'd seen a ghost. His face went from pale to beet red. What was going on? Why were four of the most powerful men in the military saluting this young, unassuming lieutenant? The answer, my friends, is a story that goes far beyond the confines of that mess hall. It's a tale of incredible bravery, hidden identity, and a secret that was about to rock the entire base. You see, Lieutenant Miller wasn't just any officer. To understand the salute, we need to rewind a bit. Miller had always been an exceptional individual. She graduated at the top of her class at the academy, excelling in everything from strategic planning to hand-to-hand combat. But she chose a less glamorous path, specializing in logistics and supply chain management. It was a critical field, but one that rarely got the spotlight. She was known for her quiet competence and her knack for solving impossible problems, ensuring that troops on the front lines always had what they needed, when they needed it. She never sought recognition. She just did the work. But recently, a major crisis had erupted. A critical supply line to a forward operating base in a hostile zone had been completely cut off. The situation was dire. The troops were running low on ammunition, medical supplies, and even food. Conventional methods to re-establish the line had failed, and casualties were mounting. The top brass was in a panic. It was at this moment that Lieutenant Miller stepped forward with a daring, almost audacious plan. It was high-risk, unconventional, and relied on a complex network of local contacts and predictive analytics that she had been developing in her spare time. Many senior officers were skeptical. It was too unorthodox, but the four generals, who had overseen the entire operation, saw the quiet brilliance in her proposal. They recognized a mind that saw angles others missed. Desperate, they gave her the green light. What followed was a masterclass in logistical warfare. Miller worked around the clock, coordinating a clandestine operation that involved airdrops in near-impossible terrain, leveraging civilian transportation networks, and even anticipating enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. She was a ghost, a phantom pulling strings from thousands of miles away. For weeks, she barely slept, living on coffee and sheer determination. She faced setbacks that would have broken anyone else. A critical transport was ambushed. A key contact went dark. But each time Miller adapted, rerouting, recalculating, and refusing to fail. She was fighting a different kind of war, not with a rifle, but with a laptop and a headset, and the lives of hundreds of soldiers depended on her every decision. She wasn't on the front page of any news report, and her name wasn't mentioned in any press briefings. She was an anonymous hero, fighting in the shadows. Back in the mess hall, the generals stood holding their salute. The silence was deafening. Finally, the highest-ranking general among them spoke, his voice booming through the room. "Lieutenant Miller," he said, his tone filled with profound respect. "We've just received word. The Ghost Lifeline was a complete success. The base has been fully resupplied. You saved them all." He then lowered his salute, a proud smile on his face. "On behalf of the 101st Airborne, the 3rd Infantry, and the entire command, thank you." The entire mess hall erupted. The initial shock gave way to a wave of understanding, followed by a thunderous, spontaneous applause that shook the building. Soldiers, sailors, and Marines, strangers to her just moments before, were now on their feet, clapping, cheering, and looking at her with a newfound reverence. The burly Marine who had pushed her was clapping the loudest, his face a mixture of shame and genuine admiration. He had shoved a hero. He had disrespected the very person who had just saved the lives of his brothers and sisters in arms. Lieutenant Miller, clearly overwhelmed, slowly rose to her feet. She was no longer just another officer. She was the architect of a miracle. This public display of gratitude was not something she ever expected or wanted. She was a soldier who simply did her duty. She returned a salute to the generals, her hand trembling slightly, a gesture that acknowledged not her own achievement, but the trust they had placed in her. In that moment, everyone in the room learned a powerful lesson. The lesson wasn't just about respecting your fellow soldiers, regardless of rank or gender. It was about understanding that heroes don't always wear capes or carry the biggest guns. Sometimes they are the quiet ones, the thinkers, the planners, the logistics officers who work tirelessly behind the scenes. They are the ones whose intelligence and dedication form the very backbone of the entire military. The 4 generals didn't just salute a lieutenant that day. They saluted quiet competence, innovative thinking, and the unsung heroes who win wars far from the battlefield. As for the Marine, he waited until the generals had left and the crowd had dispersed. He approached Lieutenant Miller's table. His head hung low. "Ma'am," he began, his voice barely a whisper. I am so sorry for my behavior earlier. It was inexcusable. What you did, ... It was amazing." Lieutenant Miller looked at him, and instead of anger, her eyes held understanding. She simply nodded. "We all have a job to do, Marine," she said softly. "Just be sure to watch where you're going next time." A small smile touched her lips, and in that moment, the lesson was truly learned. True strength isn't about how hard you can push. The quietest person in the room might just be the one holding it all together. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time.